Greetings, YouTube. This morning I'm going to talk about my latest non-fiction book, Marvels of Science, written by Isaac Asimov. Printed 1962, so it's older than I am. Amazing, isn't it? I picked this up cheap at a yard sale somewhere, I think. And I haven't read a huge amount of Asimov. I've read some of his fiction, I think with some of his short stories, and that was mostly back in the 70s and the 80s. And I knew he had written extensively in the field of science, but I never really stumbled upon any. And I had never gone out and looked for it either. And then I found this book. So I figured, hey, give it a read. What I didn't know was that Asimov was a chemist. I never knew that. I mean, I know he was in the field of science, but I just never really figured out which specific branch of it he was in. I thought that was kind of interesting. In this book, was essentially inspired by Asimov's love of numbers. And I'm not just talking like 57, which is my favorite number, or 4, or the divine number 9. Asimov likes big numbers. And a whole lot of this book is about his fascination with really big numbers. And I'm not talking millions, or billions, or trillions. I'm talking really big numbers, like a Google, 10 to the 100th power, or a Googleplex, 10 to a Google, big numbers. And it really is interesting to see someone who has a real command of statistics and yet can still speak to the audience, even while using numbers and formulas that help you understand what he's talking about. It doesn't come across as a textbook. And he knows how to write textbooks. He's written them. But the one thing that really surprised me about this book is he deals in evolution. And he deals in it from the point of view of biochemistry. Now, I've read up on evolution. I've read Darwin, Gould. I've read a lot of Dawkins. I've read a number of different books from different authors on the topic. And all of them come from the point of view of a biologist, which makes sense. Evolution is the heart of biology. But Asimov comes at it from the point of view of a biochemist. And he comes at it from the angle as, these are the chemicals that the Earth had. These are how those chemicals are physically capable of combining. This is what nature did to these chemicals in the process of evolving life. And when it was explained that way, how different chemicals combine to create different compounds, and how those compounds can be combined or broken apart by natural and then later biological processes, it was fascinating. And quite frankly, it gave me the impression that life wasn't a haphazard chance. Life was inevitable. Life had to happen. And he was working on with improper knowledge. Because he knew about electricity as a source of power from lightning, and the sun, of course. But he was completely unaware of the fact that there was the entire chemosynthesis system at the bottom of the ocean. The black smokers. He knew nothing about this. If he'd known that, it would have made his argument even easier. Now, not everything in the book is accurate. He's got the age of the universe off by about a factor of 3. He thinks it's about 5 billion years old when it's closer to 15. And he thinks that life was around on Earth for about 1 billion years when it's a whole lot closer to like 4.5. Alright, so life really began early after our planet began to become solid. Of course, most of it died off and we had to start all over again. But it amazingly how long time ago life began. So some of his points of view are not particularly relevant any longer. He was talking about the debate between cancer being mutation or virus, and we know that some cancers can be caused by a virus. That's a known now. It's not a question. And one chapter deals with science journals, and that was kind of interesting because he's talking about even in 1962, the number of articles and references in journals was being published was increasing geometrically every year. In fact, he was speaking to someone who had a journal whose sole goal was to organize the information about other journals in science and they couldn't keep up. So there was some wonderfully sweet irony that the journal designed to handle all the other journals couldn't keep pace with the number of articles being written. So if you can find this book and you like science and you're willing to gloss over the few inaccuracies in it, he has a very clear voice. It's pleasant to read. I really enjoyed it, and if I can find any more of his science writings in the future, I'm definitely going to read them.